Hello Geek Planeteers, and welcome back to the Matt Cave and another hardware review. Behold my new setup, and by new setup I mean desk, which is looking rather boring, so we should really put something in it. How about this? Boom, Bittboy. So the story behind the Bittboy is that the lovely people from the Revo K101, or the people that made the Revo K101, which some of you may recall I did a video on a little while back, got in touch with me just recently and asked me would I like to review their new product. So the full disclosure is that they asked me to pay postage, but the unit itself they did not charge me for. So that's the due diligence out of the way. Otherwise I have no particular influence with them or what have you whatsoever. They just wanted me to review it, presumably because they liked my last review. So let's take a look at the Bittboy box. So from this image on the front, you'll see it looks a bit like a Game Boy, only with 4 buttons, and seems to be, at least suggestively, like a version of the Revo K101, but for NES, rather than for Game Boy Advance. This is not entirely the case, but we'll get to that in a moment. So let's have a look at the other side of the box here. It just tells you what all the buttons do and so on. It does actually point out... no, it doesn't actually, sorry. Looking at this with the viewfinders, it's a little bit tiny. It does not actually tell you what the other 2 buttons are, because it is indeed an NES emulation machine, and 2 of those buttons are basically turbo buttons. But we do have some information here, some of which is important. As we go down the list, material ABS, 2.2-inch IPS screen, 300 blah, 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 blah. We scroll all the way down. Games are English version and no Chinese. Well, we'll get to that. And there's a little tick there saying that it is indeed the red one. For as we all know, red is Shigeru Miyamoto's favourite colour. Possibly. I might have made that up. So let's pop the box over there, because you want to know what's in the box. Well, first things first, you get the Bittboy unit itself. I'll pop that there. We'll take a closer look in a moment. You also get one of these handy dandy micro USB cables that absolutely don't come with everything. And, excuse the rustling, you have one of those weird funky AV cables that's like mono and you're supposed to plug it into an old-fashioned telly. If you have one, you could indeed plug it into a modern telly if it has the port, but it would look shit. So let's get on with this, because those are just cables, and let us take a look at the unit itself. So if I sort of put my hand there, so you can get an idea for scale. I should have read it style. I should have brought a banana for scale. Instead you'll have to put up with my hand. Matt's hand for scale. Or to give you a better idea, because you don't know how big my hands are. I might have tiny man hands, or massive hands, trumpy hands, whatever. There we go. Just pop that cinder. There is a packet of tissues, which I just happen to have nearby for scale there. So that's giving you an idea. It's just slightly less tall than a packet of tissues, but a little bit wider. So, screen, D-pad, 4 buttons, which click rather pleasingly. Start and select button, and a reset button there, which is all important because it's the only way you can change games. Over here we have a volume slider. This is also very important for reasons that you'll see very soon. On the back here we've got this sort of faux battery pack. Faux battery compartment, I should say. There is a battery in there. It is a rechargeable. This is a bugger to get off because it's not really designed to come off easily. And inside there is a standard lithium-ion mobile phone battery. As memory serves, it's a Motorola, but I could be wrong. Nothing of interest over here. On the bottom, we'll save the top for last. On the bottom, we have a microphone port and a micro USB charging port. And then on the top here, we have a power switch here and what appears to be a micro SD card slot. Spoilers, it's not a micro SD card slot. Yeah, I mean, that's clearly what it's meant to be, and maybe this is an early version, maybe they will release another version later down the line. Like the Revo K101 I had was the 101 Plus, they were very keen to point out, so it had differences from the original. But I don't know if you can see down in there via the camera, but there is nothing there. It's not even blocked off. So if, like me, you decide to stick a micro SD card in there to see what happens is your micro SD card slides all the way down inside the casing, and then you have to take these screws out and pull the casing off in order to get the bugger back out. Not exactly handy. So how does it play? Well, let's have a look, shall we? So we'll switch this on. And oh, the sound's off. So let me turn it back on for you and you'll see why it's off. Yes. That is menu music that you can't turn off, I'm afraid. So what do we have on here? Well, for a start, you can see the screen is actually really, really good. It's a little TFT, and you can see that from almost any angle, you can see that quite happily. I mean, I can see it pretty well through the viewfinder. That's how good that is. And despite the terrible music, and I'm going to shut up in a minute so you can listen again, but despite the terrible music, the speaker is actually pretty good as well. So that is it at its loudest. So what we have here is one of those little 300-in-1 things. For some reason, Dale from Chip and Dale is on there, maybe because he's going to Dar, who knows. And like a lot of these 300-in-1 cartridges, what you have here is a large number of repeated games, but also you get weird little ROM hacks and things. And I will show you my favourite at the end. So, yes, sort of Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3. For the most part, where it says Part 2, Part 3, it is the legit Part 2 or Part 3. It's only when you start delving into things like Double Dragon 4. There was no Double Dragon 4 on the NES, for example. So that will be a ROM hack. Tiny Toon 2 and Tiny Toon 3, but no Tiny Toon 1. Robocop 4, there was no Robocop 4 on the NES. So you can press left and right to scroll down an entire page. You can also go up and down to go a thing at the time. There's some interesting titles on here if you don't mind dirty pirated ROMs. Street Fighter V, it says there, is actually a fairly good NES port of Street Fighter, and I cannot remember whether that actually existed. My brain says yes, but I'll have to look that up. Mighty Final Fight, that was always a good one. And well, all sorts of things here. Spider-Man, Batman, Power Rangers 2. Power Rangers 2 is in fact the Kyoku Sentai Jiranger ROM. So technically it is a legitimate Power Rangers game, except it's the Japanese only game based on the show that Power Rangers has adapted from, so it's not exactly the same. We've got I think that's Parasol Stars. And yeah, there's a fair amount of on here. So, okay, there's a bunch of ROMs on here that they clearly do not own the copyright on, and they have clearly not paid for. But you know what? There are millions and millions and millions of devices out there just like this. If anybody remembers the game prints that I reviewed a little while back, this is kind of like an upmarket version of the game prints in that it's all preloaded, but the stuff that's on there is not a big pile of shit. So yeah, this is it. Should we play a game? So now I am going to leave the sound off. Oh, this is going to take forever. I am going to leave the sound off because I don't want Nintendo taking the copyright on my video. Especially as I only get like about 3 pence every 3 years. So there we go. There's Super Mario Brothers. So up and down, and it's actually start to select there, but otherwise it loads up. That's very clearly Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, Matt, don't do the music yourself, you plonker. Knowing my luck, Nintendo can identify it from my terrible rendering. So, Super Mario Brothers then, and it runs quite well. The screen is the perfect aspect ratio. Unlike the Revo K101, there's no stretching or wasted real estate. In case you're wondering why I'm failing at jumping on level 1, it's because the buttons are not offset the way they are on the original controller. You've got one above and one below, as you can probably see. The others are the turbo buttons, which makes this very tricky. But anyway, yes, you can see that's fairly good quality. The controls are the D-pad is a little spongy. It's not the worst I've ever used. It's not the best. I mean, it is clearly cheap plastic with a membrane underneath. It does not feel as good as the original NES pad, but then very few things do. And I wasn't even that fond of the NES pad. SNES pad for the win, ladies and gentlemen. So, let's get to the end of the level here. I'm sorry there's a bit of an angle, but it's a bit difficult to play whilst keeping things in the viewfinder. Wait, oh, and I'm dead. Because I'm having to hold the run button, which is here, rather than here. So, and, yeah, there we go. Jump down a hole, Mario. Jump down a hole in shame. So, that is pretty much the Bittboy in a nutshell. I'm now going to show you my favourite game on here. See, we've got Chip 'n Dale 1. That is, if we just load that up briefly, as you can see, I'll even turn the music up. That's very clearly the original Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. But you'll see, is it me? Is it me, or is that in Japanese? So, yeah, and there we go. Well, I assume it's Japanese. I'm going to turn that off now. I assume that's Japanese. Some games are more responsive than others. Right. Aren't you supposed to be able to pick up boxes in this game? Oh, there we go. Okay. Eat my apple death. So that's very clearly Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, but in Japanese. So the box is technically true and also technically lies, because it said all English, which is a lie, but it said no Chinese, which is true. Unless, of course, that is Chinese and I'm mistaking my Chinese scripts for kanji scripts. If somebody who actually has a brain, please, by all means, leave comments in the thing below and let me know. So, Chip 'n Dale 2, if we boot that up, I don't think it's obvious from the title screen. Oh, no, it is. So, and that is legitimately Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers 2. And there, of course, is the Dale sprite that's on the dodgy title screen here. But Chip 'n Dale 3. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will remember there was no Chip 'n Dale 3 on the NES. Or indeed, as far as I'm aware, anywhere. So what on earth is this? Well, I don't know what those characters mean, if they indeed mean anything. But I'm sure we all remember the episode of Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, which saw Dale dropped into a hostile enemy territory with a machine gun. No, I'm not joking. That is supposed to be Dale. And, yes, and look, enemy soldiers. Oh, I died, but collected a key. Now, I can't remember which NES game this is a ROM hack of. I'm fairly certain. I want to say Ikari Warriors. I have to move my mouse there because I'm a little concerned that the sound has stopped recording. Oh no, it seems to keep going. That's fine. Yes, I don't recall whether this is Ikari Warriors or something else, but I do remember a game where collecting keys and things in order to open boxes. So if it's not Ikari Warriors, it's Commando or something like that. Oh look, Dale now has a flamethrower because reasons. Because of course he does. Eat my hot flamethrowery death. Anyway, yes, so I'm pretty sure that's not an official Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers game, or if it is, Disney went really dark for a short time. Anyway, so yeah, that's the Bittboy. I'll be absolutely honest, I'll have to look up the price because the people at Revo or Bittboy or whatever they're calling themselves now didn't actually tell me how much it's retailing for, but memory says about 35 quid, I think. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a terrible console, but it is a terribly wasted opportunity, because the Revo K101 let you load your own ROMs. This absolutely does not. Unless I can do so by hooking it up to the computer with a USB cable, which I will try and come back in a moment if that actually works. But yes, there we go. Revo K101. That is the Bittboy. Not the most terrible handheld, but certainly a wasted opportunity. If you are into a little portable NES with games on that you can't change, by all means pick one up. It's better than the Game Prints, but I actually think the Revo K101 is a better portable NES emulator than this, because you can put your own ROMs on it and then play whatever games you want, actually in English. So there we are. Note, plugging in a USB cable does chuffle.